she told me that what clicked for me. She said that's what made a difference, and this is why I wanted to be part of your community, because I know you're gonna do it for the greater good rather than for pure profitable standpoint.
Right. Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Evolving Your Workplace. I'm Carol Schultz. Today's episode, we are going to get into what it is to be a public benefit corporation and why you may consider becoming one. For anyone leading a company or starting a company, this one's for you. I'm joined today by Marion Siboni, founder and CEO of La Creme de la Stem. Marion, thanks so much for joining me today. Can you first tell us a little bit about your company, Creme de la Stem?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Carol, for having me today. I'm really glad to be here. So La Creme de la Stem is a public benefit corporation, as you mentioned, that is specifically designed to support early stage female founders building in tech and science. So I provide weekly sessions with investors to demystify the investing process, VIP guests who can share actionable advice, whether it is exited entrepreneurs, go-to-market experts, social media influencers, and so on. And I also provide perks and discounts from corporate partners.
Got it. Can you explain what a public benefit corporation is for those who don't know? The reason I ask is because I, of course, am familiar with other, B Corps and C Corps, but I wasn't familiar with this term. And what then are some of the reasons that a company might take this route instead of the traditional sort of S Corp route?
Yes, absolutely. So, so a public benefit corporation is a C Corp, but it has two additional requirements than a classic C Corp. First, you have to have a mission statement rooted in the core structure. And second is you have to publish a report every 2 years to share with the public what the progress is that you have done with your company to address that specific mission that you're targeting. So I decided to go for a public benefit corporation because I wanted to be able to incorporate my mission in a really strong structure, and I put I really wanted to make sure that other members understand why I'm doing it, and the fact that my number one objective is to act for a public benefit. It is a for-profit, so I am, a classic business entity, but I really wanted to integrate those social goals into the corporate structure. I look into the different aspects of other legal structures like nonprofit, LLC, classic C Corp. I also look into B Corp, as you're mentioning, but the difference with the B Corp is that B Corp is a private stamp. So you actually have to pay a private company every year. It's not cheap to show that you are respecting those requirements. So to me, that was also like it just made more sense for it to be directly into the legal structure rather than paying some sort of private company to have a stamp.
Interesting, because I think that like Lemonade is a B Corp, right? If I'm not
Yes. Yes.
Maybe Warby Parker and Coursera. I'm not certain about that, but I knew Lemonade because I've followed them.
Yeah. Patagonia as well is another B Corp, and they also are a public benefit corporation. So they decided to have both. I think B Corp is more like from a marketing standpoint. It's they did a really good job of sharing this with the public and advertising around this.
And that's why Lemonade very was big on telling everybody, here's what we're doing, and this is why if you wanna support a company that's doing good in the world, hey, use us, right?
Absolutely.
So what was it for you personally that had you say, yeah, public benefit corps, that C Corp with those two qualifiers, right? Instead of going the traditional route.
Yeah, definitely.
What is that going to do for not just your business, but any business, for example?
Yeah. So when you choose to be a public benefit corporation, you are legally required to consider the impact of your decision. on a large range of stakeholders. So whether it's like employees, customers, communities, partners, and so on. So that was really important for me to have that, and I think this is important in general to just have that as a core component, because then it forces you to think not solely for the profit, but for the positive impact that your company is going to have, which at the end of the day is going to generate profit. So I really like that approach.
And a positive impact to the employees, to the planet, to consumers, all of the above, some of the above.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So that's really the goal. It's like you decide to put that into your consideration, depending whatever decision you make, it has to address those goals. So that's something I was doing no matter what, intuitively. So I think it would just make sense to align that with a legal standpoint.
I have to wonder if in running a public benefit corp, and I'm not asking what you're personally going to do, it sort of leads me to believe that a public benefit corp is not one that's going to go public. Because the minute it goes public, the goals and objectives change. Because now you have to bow to Wall Street and what they want,
mm-hmm.
and to shareholders, right? Which,
yes,
I have to imagine a privately held public benefit corporation does not have to do that. Now that doesn't negate the fact that maybe somebody will come along and buy that public benefit corporation and turn it into not being a public benefit corporation any longer. So, I think a lot about this because of, I don't know how to put it, I don't want to say the evils of Wall Street. Somebody who owns equities myself,
yeah,
I have to look at what I'm invested in. And some of those things were things that I inherited, right, from my parents, to say, this is not a company I want to do business with.
Yes. Yes.
I think I had the minute I got it, I had my broker sell everything in Philip Morris. I said, why am I invested in a company who's killing people?
Yeah.
With their products. So, in for entrepreneurs listening, what advice can you give on if they're grappling with this? Gosh, should I be a public benefit? Should I be a regular C corp? Like what? I look at some of the horrible, evil companies out there making billions of dollars, and I'm thinking, what are they really doing to help anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a firm believer that if you do good at some point, it's gonna pay forward. So I also think that when you think on a global standpoint, like a 360 standpoint, and you think not just about like purely profit, which can be good for the short term, but you think more on the long term, and building an ecosystem of partners who are supporting you, of customers who understand why you're doing that, then it just pays on the long term. So I think this is a smart long-term approach. I think it forces you to be very careful and be very strategic about the type of partner that you will pick, and even the type of customers that you want to have. And it's going to pay at some point, right? I think that it's all about building strong foundations, and then also just being coherent and aligned with your values and being able to share that. So that's also like a marketing argument to be a public benefit corporation. And actually, one of the founding members of La Creme de la STEM, she came to one of the webinars I was doing with the NASDAQ, and then came on my website, and she looked at public benefit corporation. She was not familiar with that word, but she told me that what clicked for me. She said that's what made a difference, and this is why I wanted to be part of your community, because I know you're gonna do it for the greater good rather than for pure profitable standpoint. Right. Again, at the end of the day, we're in a capitalistic world, and it is a for-profit, but I believe you can do both.
Well, and as do I, and I think that's what's really important here, right? It's, just because you're a for-profit company doesn't mean you have to be evil, right? And I think that, you know, when we look at the founders that are developing these public benefits corporations, what I have to wonder is it mostly in the, you know, millennial and Gen Zs, right?
Yeah.
People who, you know, are caught in a world of someone else's making that they're not necessarily happy with.
Yes.
How can I make a difference?
Yes, for sure.
What does that look like for me to make a difference?
Yes, I think there is a need for purpose that we see in, I think, all generation. I mean, we see it as a trend. Like, I'm a millennial. I see that in like a lot of millennials are, you know, trying to find a job that makes sense or build a company that makes sense. We see that in Gen Z as well. But I think this is like a global movement of, at the end of the day, you don't want to be just part of a system. You want to make sure that you can contribute, specifically in a world where we have like a lot of uncertainty, you know, coming out of the pandemic, going in a world where politically the world is quite unstable at the moment. It's important to stay grounded and make sure that you can look beyond that and make sure you have a positive impact in your life.
And would you say that that's been one of the driving forces behind those who choose to align themselves with your company?
Yes, absolutely. I think that when you are an entrepreneur, you are driven by a passion. That's something that is, you know, consuming you. It's something that I hear a lot. People like, I can't get rid of that idea. I have to like tap into it. I'm just obsessed with that problem I need to solve. And I think this is like the core component of every entrepreneur, is like finding that passion and then being able to go from a passion to an idea to then something that actually works and build a business around that. But at the core of it, there is a passion, because being an entrepreneur is so difficult. You need to be so resilient, have so much grit, and believe in your idea and believe in yourself or your passion so much that if you don't have that flame inside you, you're going to last maybe 6 months, maybe a year top, but you won't be able to stay that long around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I know we had talked, like, you know, for your plans for the company. Are you planning on growing it, you know, hiring people, you know, what you think about doing? And, you know, it makes me think of a very old friend of mine who is doing some research now to determine if he wants to build a platform that be competitive to another platform that we would all know. And part of the problem is with this other platform is it was acquired by a company and they've basically ruined it, right? And he said to me, you know, Carol, I don't need to, you know, make billions of dollars. You know, I want to have a nice retirement. I want to have a, you know, a cushy life, whatever that might be. I don't need billions of dollars to do that.
Yes.
And, you know, I thought that was interesting. And I said, well, I get that. So, you know, as you start building the company, here's what you have to think about is, I mean, you know, if I were to come in, let's say, as a co-founder with you on this, I know what I need to be able to basically retire with my horses and travel around, you know, buy a ranch somewhere outside of Colorado. And, you know, the amount of money I would need to do that and have that relaxing, you know, retirement. So, you know, and as we start thinking about this, and that's, of course, where I get into, you know, what's our talent strategy going to be, right? Is, you know, finding people, you know, if you're the one that says, hey, I'm going to build this and, you know, I only want to make X amount of money, then, you know, you're probably on your own. Because if you do at some point bring in full-time employees, you know, they're going to want to know, well, how am I going to make money?
Yes.
Do I need to be a billionaire? No, but you know, I certainly would like to make, you know, X million so I could, you know, invest or do whatever I want to do with that money, right? You know, I mean, you know, it's not my job to tell somebody what they should want to do with and how much money they should need. And, you know, I think that those are things that people really need to think about.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I think it's and I feel like we now live in a world where it's not that obvious anymore that you need to make that much money to be happy. I have like a lot of friends that are very happy with the job they have. They don't want any more responsibilities because maybe they're just starting a family. They just, had a kid and they want to just be able to make the most of the money they've been making over the past few years, right? There is also this perspective of you have to enjoy right now while you're healthy and you have the means to travel the world and enjoy going out and have some sort of freedom. So I think the freedom is not always through money. It can be through different ways. Um, and and yeah, I like that we see more and more different narratives and there is no one size fits all, and some people will be happy with the extensive goal of being a billionaire, which by the way is not achievable by a lot of people on this planet. And some will be happy to just make a couple of millions, and some will be happy with like less. And yeah, I don't think there is like a single way of being happy in the world today.
I agree. It's like I said, it's not for you or I to you or me to tell people how much money they should want to make, what they need for retirement, whatever that might be. But that's part of when thinking about building a company, right? Or
Yeah.
if you're looking at a public benefit corporation, or what my buddy is looking to do is to have him start thinking about, okay, I know this is what you want to make, but if you're going to have full-time employees, you have to think about what they need and what they
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and I don't need to build this to being as big as this. I say, well, I understand that, and you may not have to do that. But the question then is, how big do you need to build it so people are, do you want people who are happy making $150,000 a year? If you do, that's a totally different profile.
Yeah.
Somebody who's looking to get out of this with millions.
Yes, for sure. I think it's about setting the expectation as well and understand what makes sense for those employees. There are other forms of rewards. Working remotely is one of them. It's something we've seen a lot during the pandemic. We see so much more companies forcing the return to the office, and there is so many employees that are craving to just have the freedom of travel wherever they want to, and they will value that more than anything else. So that's a way to attract good employees as well.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. What would you say would be your argument for, if somebody came to you and said, I'm trying to decide what to do. What are the top 3 reasons I should build a public benefit corporation?
I think the number one is having a positive impact on the world. That's definitely something that is really important. The second one is you could hesitate between building a nonprofit and a for-profit, and the public benefit corporation is a nice way to have the same values, carrying the same values, and the nonprofit addressing the same needs that a nonprofit would address, but was still making money and being also honored of your decision. Because when you have a nonprofit, sometimes it can be sometimes you have to report to directors. The nonprofit doesn't belong to you as an individual. So that's the second argument. And the third, a public benefit corporation is a C corp. So at the end of the day, you can still go fundraising, you can still talk to investors, and you have a legal structure that is open to welcome investors. So it's not an issue for any investor to invest.
Yeah, and when I listen to anybody talk about nonprofits, I recently had somebody, a prospect in the nonprofit industry, and he's, in my first conversation with him, he said to me, one of the hardest things is I don't have any employees yet. Everybody's a volunteer. So right now, as I start to raise money,
Mm-hmm.
and he said the problem is somebody has said, yeah, I'll do this, and then something else comes up. They're like, sorry, can't make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that to be, at least the nonprofits I have been associated with in the past, why I would probably never do it again.
Yeah.
Right? Is it people don't, in my experience, there are very committed people, and especially in these big nonprofits, right, that we hear about. But some of these smaller companies, it's really hard to get people who will do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah. It's also difficult to get donors. It's a Yes, it's a completely different model where you have a for-profit. You can generate profit. When you are a non-profit, you still can generate profit somehow, but you are much more limited on what you can and cannot do. So it's you have more constraints in terms of creativity, I feel like.
One final thing, the female founders that are working with you, what kind of companies are they building?
Yes, so I have a lot of members, so it's kind of like all over the place in the tech and science industry. So whether it's to try to cure cancer or develop an AI helping go-to-market experts to improve their sales pitch, it's kind of like all over the place on those different industries within the tech and science buckets. Yeah, they all are working on something different, and it's so great to be at the forefront of innovation and to see, what the world might look like in 10 years.
And are they building, public benefits corporations? Are they building? Do you even know this? Traditional for profits. What are they up to? That's
Yeah, so most of them have traditional C corporation. Some of them are not incorporated yet, so they are looking at the different options, understanding, what it means to be a C corp, a public benefit corporation, or LLC. Although if you want to fundraise, C corp is definitely the way to go. But yeah, it's definitely something I share with them, specifically the one who are building in like the sustainability or social impact area.
Thanks for watching Evolving Your Workplace. Do you have a topic you'd like to discuss? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to click subscribe and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes.